Perfect. So what I wanted to show you is the structure of the Akathist hymn, right? So it starts with small compline. If you remember, small compline started with a blessing, the Trisagion prayers, and then after that starts Psalm 50, Psalm 1, Psalm 69, and 142. After this, the small doxology, and after that, the creed, okay? After the creed, it is truly right, the same prayer that we do in divine liturgy right after the anaphora, the transformation of the gifts, and then we start the canon. Okay, a canon, just like any canon of Orthodox, has 8 odes. 1, 2, 2 is omitted. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. In between there, we're going to have some small petitions and other things. So I'm sorry, that's for paraclesis. Here we're going to do all of them, and they all have a certain melody that go by. So each of the odes, we have 8 odes, each one same melody with different stanzas. This one, for instance, goes like this. Legetos, I open my mouth and pray, the Spirit fill it, like David said, and pour out the good word to the Queen and Mother of God. I will celebrate her feast with joy and gladness, and sing to her merrily, lauding her miracles. And then you have a verse in between them. Most holy Theotokos, save us. O maiden and virgin pure, the great archangel saluted you, and so forth, right? But this goes fast, and that's the first part of it. After you are finishing, these are going to be the regular Fridays, first four Fridays. And after you go through the whole canon, you usually do it with 2 choirs alternating. And then once you are finished with this, you enter into the actual Akathist hymn itself. As a preamble to the Akathist, there's a beautiful hymn that I'm going to sing for you, which is called Ti Permacho, or O Champion General. And I'm going to sing it with a different melody than it is here, because I can. And there we go. Noem to you, my champion and commander, I your city, safe from disasters, dedicate, O Mother of God, hymns of victory and thanksgiving, but as you have unassailable might, from every kind of dangers now deliver me, that I may cry to you, Hail, bride without bridegroom. Now, the word hail here, in many translations, is rejoice, hierete in Greek. Some consider that hail is a better translation in English. I think the jury is out there, in my opinion. Now, this introduces you to the actual Akathist hymn. Now, the actual Akathist hymn is a series of some longer stanzas and some shorter stanzas, and they are just in tone, like this. Glorious extolling the incarnate appearance of Christ, did the shepherds hear the angels, and running as though to a shepherd, they perceived him to be as it were a blameless lamb, that had been pastured in the womb of Mary, whom they lauded, saying, Rejoice, O mother of the lamb and shepherd, rejoice, O sheepfold of sheep with reason, rejoice, word of invisible enemies, rejoice who open the portals of paradise. And you go through all of them. And at the end you say, Rejoice, O unwedded bride. And the choir here responds, Rejoice, O unwedded bride, I'm sorry, my voice is not after whole paralysis. So that's the idea. And then you have a shorter one, having visibly sighted the stars proceeding Godward, the Magi followed after its brightness, and thereto clinging as to a light, did they search thereby for a mighty king, and reaching the unreachable, they rejoice and shouted to him, Hallelujah. And the choir responds, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. And that's how it goes for 12 times, right? So that's kind of the general structure that you're going to see. And at the end, we're going to have some basically the end of compline. But let's go back to the actual presentation, so I can walk you through some of the important parts and kind of the content, if you want, of the Akathist hymn. Let's get back to this, and let's share, and we're going to share this and share it over there. Perfect. All right. So what are the different parts of the Akathist hymn? Well, first we have to start, what does Akathist mean? Because obviously it's a Greek word, and literally means not sitting. Basically, all the service is done standing during the reading and the chanting of the main part of the Paraklis, that is those 24 stanzas, okay? It's an ancient hymn that is dedicated to the Theotokos that has a very interesting history. The structure has about 24 stanzas in total, 12 long ones and 12 short ones. And the stanzas are organized as an acrostic to the Greek alphabet, which means that the first letter of each of the stanzas is going to start alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, right? In Greek. After each of the stanza, as you already saw, after the short stanza, we sing Alleluia. And after each of the long stanzas, we sing Rejoice, O Bride Unwedded. That's the general structure. That's how the whole thing works. And this is an example here. For instance, you can see that this one, that's the first one, an angel of supreme rank, starts with A, beholding herself holy, starts with B, curious to know knowledge, right? The same thing in Greek. Angelos, what is in there? Vlepusa and gnosin, right? Alpha, beta, gamma, right? And so why this? The acrostics are used for memorization. A lot of people know this by heart. In Greek, has a very beautiful metric structure, and we're going to talk about that in a second. And a lot of Greeks know it by heart. They recite it every single day. In English, it's a little bit more complicated, because when you start translating and you want to make a metric translation, you have always to choose between, what do? Do I keep the meter, or do I keep the theology intact, or the content? The theology you always have to keep intact. But the content, do I change some things to say the same thing in a different way? Translation is not word by word. And so most of the translators, I don't know anybody that has done the feat of actually translating the Akathist with the same number of syllables, because you're going to see it's very difficult to do. So most of the English translation or Romanian translation or any translation are not going to be metered. Some of them may choose to have the alpha, beta, gamma, the acrostic, but again, it's not going to help too much with memorization. A little bit though. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. There are other canons and other hymns that have an acrostic at the very beginning, just to help people memorize them. So the history of the Akathist hymn. The Akathist hymn appeared in the 5th to the 6th century, or even earlier, according to some. The authorship is unknown. It has been transmitted as an anonymous service, but we have some suspects there. Saint Romanos the Melodos, who has created basically the kondakion genre, because this is a kondakion. A kondakion is a poetic structure, or poetic sermon, if you want, about a certain subject, about a saint, about God, in this case, about the Virgin Mary, that tells the story of the Virgin Mary. That's what it does. And we're going to see in what way. And each of such kondakion has a lot of stanza, which are called iki. One is ikos, many are iki. That's the singular and the plural in Greek. What we call today the kondakion of the Akathist hymn, the Ipermacho, or champion general that I chanted for you, was actually added later, and is part of the more modern understanding of kondakion, which is only one stanza that contains in it, if you remember from Orthros, the theology of the feast condensed in a shortest format. The apolitikion and the kondakion are the shortest form of the theology of a certain feast or a saint. The Ipermacho was later addition, is related with one or several victories of the Roman Empire, Eastern Roman Empire, with a new capital in Byzantium, Constantinople, against the Persians. And there are historical records as the people sung this hymn on the walls of the Constantinople city there, and they rejoiced and thanked the Mother of God for being a great commander, a champion general, the great commander who led them into the battle against the pagans and gave them the victory. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit of a history of the Akathist hymn. So we don't know exactly who the author is. Some say Patriarch Sergius, Germanos, Roman de Melodos, Basil of Seleucia. There are many people in the area that maybe have contributed with ideas or parts of the Akathist hymn, but we don't know for sure. Traditionally, if you will look into Synaxarion, people will say Roman de Melodos, but it's not so clear. We discussed about the kondakion. So what does it contain? What do we have in the Akathist hymn? First of all, we have the first 12 stanzas are what we call historical. What do they talk about? They talk about the events surrounding the incarnation of the Lord, because the Virgin Mary is here in the church and in the prayers because she is the mother of God. She is the Theotokos, the mother of God, the bearer of God. That's why she is important. That's why she is in the forefront of many of our prayers, because she gave birth to God. So we're going to start with the history of the incarnation through the lens of the Virgin Mary. So the events surrounding the childhood of our Lord Jesus Christ will be there. Also, the Annunciation, the visit to Elizabeth, the Nativity, the shepherds, the Magi, the fleeing into Egypt, and the presentation into the temple. Okay. The second part is not going to be historical, it's going to be dogmatic, which means it's going to present us some theology regarding, again, the Virgin Mary as regarded as the mother of God. So we're going to talk about Mary's virginal life, her virginal birth, Mary as a defender of chastity, Mary as a source of initiation mysteries, Mary as a defender of the Christian empire, and so forth there. And in between those stanzas, we're going to have the word rejoice, which in Greek is hierete, that gives the word hieretismi. You're going to hear, or salutations. In the calendar, if you look on our website, we call the Friday services the service of the salutations. The Akathist hymn is a complete service. The salutation is a more shortened service in which we do the great complying with the canon, but with only 1/4 of the full Akathist. So we're going to do basically a quarter of the 24, 6 stanzas each week. Okay? And those are called hieretismi. The Akathist hymn is when we do the whole thing, and that's a more complicated service. But we're going to hear rejoice a number of times, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Now, in liturgical life of the church, the Akathist is used in various ways. In a monastic tradition, at least in Mount Athos, and even there, not in every monastery and skiti, but generally, it is read every day during the compline service. Exactly what I showed you here. But rather than doing all the canon, I think most of the time the canon is skipped, and they do just the Akathist part, just the 24 stanzas. And they're usually read or intoned. In parishes, at least in the Greek parishes, it is read, chanted every Friday on the first 5 weeks of Lent during small compline. Now, during Great Lent, we do Great Compline, but on Friday night, we do small compline. Can you think why? Want to see if you have gotten some of the logic of the Lenten services. Well, Saturday and Sunday are not part of Lent. Okay, although we are fasting from almost the same food, wine and oil is allowed, so it's a lesser Lent. Okay, the rest of it, you're completely vegan, no oil, no wine. So those, and you eat only after the 6 hour maybe, and then on Friday night we start the celebration of Saturday. Compline is after Vespers, so we're already in the liturgical day of Saturday, and therefore you don't do Great Compline, you do small compline. I'm just trying to teach you how to think. Okay, and then on Sunday night, what type of compline we're gonna do? Great Compline, because Monday is part of Lent. And so we do Great Compline on, starting with Vespers. Actually, at the Prokeimenon of Vespers, we enter the next liturgical day. Anyway, just a couple of fun things, at least for me. All right. In the Slavic tradition, okay, and so the first 4 weeks of Lent, we do the compline with the canon and the Akathist and the quarter of the stanzas. And on the 5th week, we do compline with a full canon and all the stanzas. So it's a little bit of a longer service. In the Slavic tradition, that doesn't exist. In the Romanian tradition either, it doesn't exist. Only in the 5th week of Lent, where we have a special Saturday dedicated to this service. It's the only service in the Orthodox Church that has a day dedicated to it. So it's the feast of the Akathist of the Theotokos, right? So on that day, on the 5th week of Great Lent, there is a special Matin service where we have, anticipating the Saturday of the Akathist, there is a full canon that is read there. Okay, so that's that. In personal devotion, though, you can still use the Akathist. You just read it. You don't have to chant. You don't have to do anything. It can be read at home as part of your evening prayers, during compline, for instance. During compline, after the Action Estin, truly you are worthy to be blessed, you can add any canon, a canon to the Virgin Mary, a canon to saints that you like, a canon to the bodiless host or your guardian angel. You can do anything you want there. But the Akathist is something that is most often added there. That's why I told you that many people know it by heart. You can not even do it during compline. You can just add it at the end of your evening prayers, or basically anytime. Anytime you want to pray and you have a little bit of time, you can just read the Akathist. You are at work and want to take a break and reconnect with God, read the Akathist, read the Paraklesis. Beautiful prayer. So the Akathist is kind of a go-to prayer whenever we are going through times of joy or time of stress or pain or suffering. The Akathist is available. Why? Because the Mother of God is our mother. And where do you go when you have a boo-boo? You go to your mom. All right, so this is the idea. The Akathist is dedicated to our mother, and therefore we honor her with this. Now, what are the sources, the theological sources of this hymn? So as I mentioned earlier, we have 12 stanzas that are historical, that are covering the events around the childhood of Christ, from Annunciation all the way to the presentation in the temple. And then you have 12 dogmatic stanzas that are basically tracing some of the aspects of what we call Mariology. We don't really have that in the Orthodox Church. That's more of a Catholic term, Mariology. We should use Theotokology if we want to be correct, but that doesn't exist. So the several aspects of the veneration of the Virgin Mary in the Orthodox Church. And we have extensively spoken about those. So this should be familiar to many of you. We had 2 lessons on the Virgin Mary, okay? So the main principle of the Akathist hymn is that the Virgin Mary is regarded within the mystery of the incarnation and as the bride of the church. These are the two most important aspects: her role in the mystery of the incarnation, and she representing in an iconic form, if you want, the church. So it established her as the bride of the Lamb. We're going to see the connections in the Bible immediately, and also the New Jerusalem that described in the book of Revelation. These are the two aspects there. Okay. And mouse. All right. So the source of the Akathist, we have the Bible first, then we have the Ecumenical Council of Chalcedon and Ephesus. We're going to talk about this in a minute, and some patristic sources: Cyril of Alexandria, Bishop Basil of Seleucia, and so forth. Here are some of the Bible inspirations, if you want. We're gonna find three words that are going to be over and over and over emphasized in the Akathist hymn. One is rejoice or hail. Hierete is the original Greek. This refers to the gospel that we have just read during the Paraclesis, the visit of Mary to Elizabeth, where and also in the greeting of the angel at Annunciation. Rejoice, the one full of grace, the Lord is with you. Right? So it's very important to understand that she is full of grace because the Lord is with her. The Lord was with her even before he was incarnate, because she spent all her life in the temple, remember, praising God. So he achieved deification. And so the Lord was there even before his incarnation. That's why the angel said, oh, the Lord is with you. I mean, he was kind of surprised, right? It was not, oh, may the Lord be with you. No, he said, the Lord is with you. We say sometimes, may the Lord be with you. But that was not it. The Lord is with you. So the Lord was with her at that. Very important. So the Lord is always with her. So we're going to say rejoice. After every of the stanzas, we're going to say rejoice. And in each of the longer stanzas, we're going to have every time that rejoice. Rejoice, thou who art full of grace. Rejoice, for you did this. Rejoice, for you represent that. We're going to be rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. How many times? 144 times. Exactly. 144 times. Then we're going to say rejoice, bride unwedded, after each of the longer stanzas, the one that include the many rejoice. And that's going to be 12 times. Okay? 12 times 12 is what? 144. Okay, so start to get it. Alleluia, that we say after each of the small stanzas, it says 12 times. Where do we have that? In Psalms and the Revelation 19, verse 1. And after these things, I heard a great sound of a numerous crowd in heaven, saying, Alleluia, salvation and glory and honor and the power to the Lord our God. So again, we go towards Revelation. We have more and more references to Revelation. So what is all that? Well, in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, there is a vision of the bride of God and the new city of Jerusalem with 12 gates guarded by 12 angels, on which are written the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, sitting on 12 foundations. Is he trying to tell us something? I think so. And the woman for chapter 12 is adorned with 12 stars. Nothing is random. So the number 12 is very important. So if you look in the stanza distribution, you have 12 long ones, 12 short ones. The number of verses in each one, 144 in the dogmatic part, 144 in the historical part. The number of syllables in each of them is 288, which is 2 times 144 times 12. Okay? So what is showing is showing that Mary is an icon of the church and the bride of the Lamb. She is the heavenly Jerusalem and the bride of the Lamb. The bride of the Lamb is the church. The Theotokos represents the church, and that is the theology of the Orthodox Church. So that's why it cannot be translated. You cannot, metrical. You cannot reproduce this precision. It was made like this in the original language, which was the Greek of the time. Now, in the historical part is going to include the preparation for Nativity and Annunciation, stanzas 1 to 4, the meeting with Elizabeth, the 5th stanza, Joseph and Angel, the hymn of the angels and the shepherd, the veneration of the Magi, the fleeing into Egypt and the return and the meeting in the temple. So this is pretty much the childhood of Christ, because this is where the mother plays a very important role. But what does this represent? It represents actually a progressive uncovering of Christ's mystery through the Theotokos. Right? So Christ appears and is more and more revealed in the narrative of the Bible, and also in the Akathist hymn, as it takes those narratives and puts them in the poetic form. Okay, so the mystery starts with Mary, right? That's an annunciation. Christ is there, but in an unseen form. His pre-incarnation. So everything starts with Mary, and she received it on behalf of all the creatures. Right? So Mary prepares in the temple from 3 years old until she is about 13 or 14 years old. So she becomes the first hesychast, if you want, living in prayer, fed by manna, living in the Holy of the Holies there. Either we believe that there is actual presence there, or is a metaphor for her being with God, right? The holy chamber of her heart or her mind. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing at the end of the day. So it starts with her, and then she received it on behalf of all creatures. Let there be to me, here is the handmaiden of the Lord, let there be to me according to your word. So she becomes the new Eve. Christ is the new Adam, she is the new Eve. And then she goes to visit Elizabeth, and the mystery extends to St. John the Baptist in the house of Zacharias. So starts with her, goes to Elizabeth and Zachariah. Then Joseph finds out, right? She sees her pregnant, and the angel announces to him, and he becomes the protector there. Then during the nativity is revealed to the shepherds, who are symbol of the martyrs and the apostles, and then to the Magi, going to the pagan people, and then to all the faithful people, because she is the church. And Elder Simeon is a revelation to the entire mystery of the incarnate word. Let there be to me according to your word, for you have seen my salvation, a light for the enlightening of all nations, and glory to your people Israel. So it starts with Mary and expands until it includes the whole people of Israel and all the people, okay, all the Gentiles. It's a beautiful unfolding of this whole biblical narration. In the second part, we have some dogmatic themes. And you're going to see that even those, they have a dual structure. And we're going to see why we have this dual structure. The odd stanzas are going to have a Marian theme related with the Theotokos. And the even ones are going to have a Christological theme related with Christ. So you're going to have the first block. The first block refers directly to Christ, and the second part refers to the church. Okay, so it's going to speak about certain things that are important about the Virgin Mary: her virginal conception, her divine maternity, the virginal birth, the perpetual virginity. So she is a virgin before, during, and after giving birth. Right. So that's why she has 3 stars. If you look at her icon, she has 3 stars. She is the mother of all the faithful, right? So that's spiritual maternity. And she's a heavenly protection of the church. And she's a continual intercessor to the faithful. So you can see that after we go through the history of Christ, because she's here, because she's with Christ, then we go to understand more of her role in a theological way. Where do we get all that information? From the 2 ecumenical councils, the 3rd ecumenical council and the 4th ecumenical council. The 3rd ecumenical council in 431 in Ephesus decided on a very important thing, that she is the Theotokos, because there was Nestorius who was saying that she only gave birth to the man Christ, not to the God Christ, and that created all kinds of problems there. So Cyril to Nestorius wrote So the Virgin is called Theotokos, not as if the nature of the Word or his Godhead has its beginning from the Virgin, but inasmuch as his body, endued with rational soul, was born of her, to which body the Word was personally united. So when she gave birth to him bodily, you cannot separate him from being God, from his divinity. So she gave birth to somebody that was both God and man. That's what she called the Theotokos. The two natures are united without confusion, but united. So you cannot separate the humanity versus the divinity. But as we discussed before, Christ is born before the ages from a father without a mother, and in history from a mother, the Virgin Mary, without a father. Right? So there are two aspects there in the person of Jesus Christ. The Fourth Ecumenical Council settled the idea about the two natures of Christ. And here what he says, while Christ is a single undivided person, he's not only from two natures, but in two natures, right? So it's not just from two natures that remain separate somehow, so have two wills and two natures, but from two natures, but in two natures. The union is at the level of the hypostasis. It's a hypostatic union. It's one hypostasis, one person, Jesus Christ, with two natures of God and man, okay? Christ is one and the same Son, perfect in Godhead and perfect in humanity, truly God and truly human, acknowledged in two natures unconfusedly, unchangeably, indivisibly, inseparably. Because if you say from two natures, you can also accept a fusion of the two. Some explained it like a drop of water. If you put it in an ocean, you cannot distinguish the drop from the ocean. So the humanity of Christ is the drop and the divinity is the ocean. But it's not like that, because the fathers have successfully shown that the Bible says differently and the Revelation says differently, that there are two natures. He's not from two natures, he is in two natures, meaning that from two natures can include a composite thing, kind of like a alloy that is neither divine nor human, or one absorbs the other, which is also not good. What he says is that two stay united at the level of the person while remaining distinct yet fully connected. Okay, so the difference between the natures is in no way removed because of the union, but rather the peculiar property of each nature is preserved and both combined in one person and in one hypostasis. This was very important. So the idea of these two natures is also included in the structure of the hypostasis. So of the Akathist. So there is a binary structure, right, of the Akathist, which means made out of twos. So there are two distinct parts in one unity of thought, historical and dogmatical. There are two different types of stanza grouped together, a short one and a long one. The verses of the stanza are grouped two by two. The two rejoices, there are pairs, right? Each of them have a certain theme. Mary, as a part of the mystery of Mary is therefore, because of that, shown to be a part of the mystery of the incarnation that is ruled by this dogma, right? This dogma of the dual nature of the one person in Christ. So the perfect divine Logos incarnate in perfect man, consubstantial with the Father, but also with us, but the only one and the same only begotten Son and Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So that's the dogma of Chalcedon. Okay. Now the patristic sources of the Akathist are intertwined in the body of the Akathist, meaning that they're everywhere. So it's very difficult to distinguish which one comes from where. People have tried and they have identified some clear ones, but it's not very easy. Why? Because this whole thing is a new poetic synthesis that expresses many thoughts of many fathers, what we call the consensus patrum, the consensus of the fathers on the Virgin Mary, in a new poetic form. So it becomes something new. It puts them all together and expresses what they all said in one way or another. So the main figures of theology that are included in here are St. Cyril of Alexandria, Basil of Seleucia, Theodotos of Ancyra, and Proclus. Those are the main ones. Now, we have a few more slides. The Theotokos and Great Lent. 2 more slides. Why is it important? Because during Great Lent, every Friday, we're going to have the salutation, the Hieretismin, the first 4 weeks. On the Saturday of the Akathist, on the Friday before, we're going to do the full service. Then on March 25th, whenever that falls, we're going to celebrate again the Virgin Mary. And on Bright Friday, right after Holy Week, so after Pascha, the Friday after Pascha, we celebrate Theotokos of the life-giving spring. That's Bright Friday. Has to do with a miracle that happened around Constantinople with a well that was seen through a vision of the Virgin Mary, where people would go and would be healed, people who were blind and with sicknesses. And that well still exists in Constantinople today. So during Great Lent, the Mother of God is basically journeying with us. So Theotokos is leading us to Pascha. The mystery of the incarnation makes possible the resurrection. If Christ was not incarnate, he cannot die and resurrect. So she's very important there. And the Theotokos not only initiates our salvation, but she also supports our salvation. That's why she's prayed. We pray to her because she exemplifies, encourages, and supports our ascetical efforts. Ascesis means training, what the athletes do before they play a game or whatever, go to the Olympics. So she exemplifies, encourages, and supports our efforts as we go towards God. So that's what I had for you. I'm waiting for your questions. Yes, please. Her virginity, before, during, and after. The question was, what were the 3 stars on her icon? But isn't it beautiful, though? All these poetic stars, and there's more to it. But that's kind of for a short lesson. I think that's enough for today. But I want you to do the next step in our lessons. We've learned about the daily services. We've learned about Matins, Vespers, Compline, Paraclesis, Akathist. You know what to do next? Start to pray them, okay? Come to services, those who we do here, Vespers, Orthros, get your notes, right? Get that structure. Go on the website, on our YouTube page, take a screenshot of the structure of Orthros and try to recognize that. Look on DCS and see if you can see that structure. Read the hours, you'll find them in there or in any prayer book. First hour, third hour. Try to read them. Read the instructions there, the rubrics, right? Come to the Paraclete service and try to say, okay, which one is the canon? Which one is the petition? Which one is the whatever filler? Where is the gospel? Where is the prokimenon? Right? Find those elements in the services there. And during Great Lent, try not to miss services because each one of them is going to be so beautiful, and you're going to see the differences between small compline and great compline. Monday, we're going to do the great compline. It's longer, more compactionate service with some specific hymns that will be repeated every Monday. And then Fridays, we're going to do the small compline with the Akathist. So you're going to hear the canon. You're going to hear the Akathist hymn recited there. So you're going to be able to follow through with those services, okay? In the other class, we're going to start discussing about the divine liturgy, not this Sunday, but the next Sunday. And over there, we're going to talk about the structure of the divine liturgy, so you can start following that too. So you have now all the tools, but if you don't use them, you're going to lose them. Right? With any talent, if you don't use it, you lose it. That's the thing. If you want to gain something, you have to apply it. Talk among yourselves, okay? Did you recognize the prokimenon? Did you recognize this? Talk about these services. They are for you. They are to be used. I'm not here to give you a test. What am I going to do with the test? You know it or you don't know it. I want you to be Christians that are taking their faith seriously, and they are using the knowledge that we give in class to be transformed. How are we transformed? by participating in the life of the community. That includes worship. We are a worshiping community more than anything else. We are a worshiping community. If you do not understand the worship, you do not understand the community. The whole ethos, the whole phronima, the whole characteristics of the Orthodox Church are mostly drawn from the services. This is where everything is, the music, the incense, the lighting, everything is Orthodoxy 100%. And so use what we have discussed, because that's kind of the end of the series, and make it happen. It's for you. It's not for me. I don't gain anything from it, rather than the joy of being with you. And that's the biggest joy. That's the biggest joy. All right. Last call for questions. All right. No questions. Well, we thank the Lord for giving us this time together. We ask him to allow us and give us the will, the means, and the power to fulfill these things for his glory, for his holy now and forever and to the ages of ages. Amen. God bless you all. Goodbye to everybody online.
Thank you.